And now your host, Richard Thomas.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Miracle. We're here in Greenwich, England, for a special edition of Miracles from Around the World. And we'll be traveling far and wide for them, from Brazil to Australia to Italy. But first, a story that took place not far from here in Worcestershire County. This is typical English countryside, farmlands and forests dotted with rivers, lakes, and canals. But what happened there was anything but typical. In fact, it was miraculous. Ross Davies and Darren Lyons were on their way to a friend's house when they stopped to give Liam Coffey a ride.
Make sure you put your seatbelts on, yeah?
Are we going straight over to Mike's, yeah?
Yeah, we'll go straight there.
The boys were looking forward to seeing the work another friend had done on his motorcycle, but they would never make it that far.
They'd never afford the insurance on it.
I was going between 35 and 40 miles an hour. As I went round the bend and lost control of the car.
In the next instant, the car left the road and went over the bank, spinning in the air and landing upside down in a channel of water. Ross unfastened his seatbelt and pulled himself through the driver's window. By the time he surfaced, Darren was already on shore. But Liam was still trapped inside.
Just saw Liam and his hands managed to get above the door and just see his fingertips above the water. He managed to swim out the driver's door, same way I swam out, but he got his ankle caught in the seatbelt.
The more Liam struggled to free his leg, the more panicked he became. Ross had to act quickly.
The first thing I thought was to go down and give him mouth-to-mouth.
Ross had received first aid training, but the techniques he'd learned were on dry land, not underwater. Still, he covered Liam's nose and began breathing into his mouth, praying the oxygen would keep his friend alive.
Help! Someone help, please! Help me!
Every 5 or 6 breaths or so, I kept on shouting,
Help!
And then he'd dive again to fill his friend's lungs with air.
I said, no, I can't give up. I've got to save him.
Help! Please!
And then Melissa Haggerty and Paul Brewer drive by.
And then we came across a boy in the road.
What's he doing then?
You better stop. As we got closer, I could see the shock and the fear.
What's happened?
My friend's trapped in the car in the water.
Where is he?
Just down there by the...
All right, don't worry.
Somebody! Help! Help!
Oh, he's down there. He's down there, look.
I think that was one of the worst things, just his screaming.
Help me, my friend! My friend's trapped, please!
It had been 10 minutes since the car entered the water.
Help!
What's happened?
Help me! My friend, he's trapped!
We get him out.
Please!
What should I do?
Go and get an ambulance.
Please! Help!
Where is he? Where is he?
He's inside! Help, quick! We gotta get him out! Where is he?
I thought that if we got him out quick enough, we'd be okay.
We gotta get him out! Help! I can't get him loose!
I reached under as far as I could and got hold of the lad round his arms and tried to pull him clear. But his head was about 2 foot still under the water, so he was actually trapped.
Come on!
I thought there's no way. I thought he was going to die where he was. I scrambled up the bank to try and find something to open the door with.
Luckily, he spotted a rowing oar nearby.
Quick, hurry!
And it just seemed to be lying there as if it was laid there for the job, like.
Quick! Yeah, that's it! Quick! Yes!
We wasn't going to give up until we got him out.
By now, Melissa had arrived at the pub, instructing them to call an ambulance and enlisting the help of some of the locals there.
Can you help?
Make sure the ambulance is there, yeah?
Nearly 15 minutes had passed when Paul finally managed to pry the door open.
The young lad's face, when I pulled him free of the water, it was just like a corpse.
I think it's too late. No, too late. No.
He was like blue, lifeless, just eyes completely open.
Come on, Liam. Come on. Come on.
They'd just got him out as we got there. I was just thinking, do something. For crying out loud, just do something for him.
Help him. Come on, quickly. Let me give mouth to mouth.
Yes, I can. I'm coming
Come on,
through.
quick, please.
I just massaged his chest, was going to give him mouth to mouth, but I don't know how to do it properly.
Liam had been under the water for so long that to revive his lifeless body would take a miracle.
It's very hard to try and comfort someone when their friend's dying.
What have I done? It's all right. It's all right. Come on, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. You're all right.
I think he was just blaming himself and had it set in his mind it was his fault and that's the end of it.
I lost control. Calm down, all right? Just calm down.
By now, 2 more vital minutes had passed.
Yes, come on.
Yes. Come on, son. That's it. Coming round.
All right.
It was a miracle that he was coming alive,
Good. What's your name? What's your name, son? Come on. What's your name?
but I thought that he'd have serious problems. I thought he'd be brain damaged in some way because he'd been under there for what seemed forever.
Moments later, emergency teams arrived, headed by Darren Deacon.
The situation at the time was quite desperate. We didn't know how this young lad was trapped.
All right, mate. We'll have you out soon. All right, just stay with us.
His response level was low. He'd gone beyond the stage of shivering, which means that hypothermia starting to set on. There was the possibility that he had taken some silt into his system. I used a pair of shears that we all carry as standard to cut the seatbelt.
Right, won't be a minute more. Just bear with us. Cut it through now. Okay. All right.
As they prepared Liam for transportation to the hospital, everyone involved could not help but think that they had just witnessed a miracle. Dr. William Konarjewski explains.
When people are trapped underwater, a 5-minute mark is a mark beyond which you'd expect very few people to survive, or if they do survive, you'd expect permanent brain damage. Instead, we had a young man whose mind appeared to be very much intact, and who didn't really appear to be that seriously ill.
Ross!
All right, Liam.
Darren!
He seemed to be absolutely normal. He seemed to just be worried about his jacket. He didn't even want to go to hospital.
I don't want to go!
Nice day, come. All right, all right.
Ross!
Sort it out.
I don't want to
Hang
go!
on, that's enough. You'll be okay, all right? Don't worry about it. You'll be all right. All right, Liam. All right, mate. Okay, we're taking you to hospital now.
Liam was immersed in very dirty water containing bacteria and chemicals. These substances would have caused considerable irritation to the tissues of his lung and causing the lungs to get waterlogged.
Hiya, this is Liam, 16-year-old chap.
Liam developed severe breathlessness, and that got progressively worse until we were forced to intervene.
Okay, I'm just doing enough blood gas.
If Liam had not gone on to the ventilator, his lungs would have filled progressively with water. All his body tissues would have been deprived of oxygen, and one would guess that within an hour or two he would have died.
When I walked in there and just saw the machines in, the tubes, I just started blaming myself again. Started thinking, I've done this to him.
You're right, Liam. I'm really sorry, mate.
Accidents happen.
I'm really sorry.
You can't blame it on anyone. It's just one of those things that happens. I can remember the back of the car coming out, then hitting the bank, and the car overturning. Got to halfway out the window, and then the seatbelt caught around my legs. And then I started pushing really hard with my hands and that, trying to get out. And I was totally stuck. I felt someone swim down and grab my head, open my mouth and blew air into me. Basically just saved my life.
Help!
I think that there is very little doubt that if his friend hadn't been quick thinking and dived down repeatedly to fill his lungs with oxygen, that Liam would almost certainly have died, or at the very best survived, with a very badly damaged brain. Liam's recovery is amazing because he has recovered without any permanent physical damage either to his brain or to his lungs. He is, to all intents and purposes, exactly the same person who went under the water. He survived completely intact, which is a little short of a miracle.
Greenwich's Royal Observatory is one of the world's most renowned scientific institutions, dating back to 1675. It was here that Edmund Halley, famous for his comet, worked as a royal astronomer, and William Christie discovered the 8th moon of Jupiter. Well, you're about to meet another Englishman with a love of the skies. His explorations took him to the Dolomite Mountains in Italy, where he discovered something far greater than a comet or a moon. He discovered that miracles can happen. For Pat Dolan, paragliding is not just a sport, it's an opportunity to experience pure tranquility.
The nearest thing you can actually get to being a bird without having feathery wings. You're on a different level within your mind. People who do yoga or meditate get a similar level without the danger.
Danger was the last thing on Pat's mind as he set off on a practice run prior to the Bosnia del Grappa International Paragliding Competition in the Dolomite Mountains of Italy.
It's going to clear up later. Should be a good day, I think.
Pat was looking forward to being part of the team representing England that year.
Do an up and return along the ridge or something like that.
Great. Okay, that sounds good to me.
Good.
Let's go.
Take us here, and if we head about 10
Team trainer Dr. Andrew Bucknell was in charge of the practice flight plan.
in front of the ridge, it's really obvious, you can't miss it.
How long do you think that'll take?
Probably a couple of hours. For a couple of us, it was going to be very easy, just a nice warm-up. And for others who hadn't really done much in the way of competition flying or flying to tasks, it would be a nice challenge.
Pat to Andy, radio check, please.
Yeah, got you loud and clear.
The group would be in constant radio contact throughout the flight.
The first flight from a new site, going up and above the mountains, was a fantastic feeling.
Paragliders gain height by riding thermal currents. Pat had caught a big one, leaving his teammates far below.
Hey! I can see the top of your canopy! I'm right up over here!
He was teasing us about this very strong thermal he'd found.
How does it feel down there? Well, it's going to be a very long walk home for you, isn't it?
And he was climbing faster than the rest of us, and he was making the most of it.
Andrew and the others flew the planned route and landed a few hours later, unconcerned that they had lost radio communications with Pat and unaware of the danger he was facing.
I was going up quite rapid, and I'd looked at my altimeter and it was saying 5,000 feet. All of a sudden I hit some turbulence of some kind, and over half of the wing collapsed. And at that point I started to fall into the wing, and the wing hit me, and then immediately started falling again. And the wing inflated again, but not inflated properly. To my horror, the same thing happened again. Except this time I didn't go into an edge of the wing, I went right into the middle of it. It didn't matter how much I pushed, the wing just wouldn't move away from me. I was trying to get my emergency parachute out.
But he was so tangled that he couldn't release it. Pat was now free falling at over 100 miles per hour.
All you can do is just tense up and hope for the best.
Moments later, traveling at over 100 miles per hour, he hit the ground. Pat had landed on the rocky slope of one of the many mountains that formed the Dolomites. And yet somehow, miraculously, he was still alive.
I couldn't work out whether I was alive or dead. Sounds strange, but I wasn't quite sure I was looking out of a dead body or whether I was looking out of a live body, really. I sort of knew that I'd done something really drastic, like broken my back or something had gone through. So I knew not to try and move. I knew not to turn my head because I was a little bit worried that the brake was somewhere up on the higher parts, and if I turned my head I could kill myself. I just concentrated then on breathing.
Mike, this is Andy. Is that you just approaching the landing field?
Yeah, I'm just coming over you now.
Okay, have you seen Pat recently?
Sorry, I haven't seen him for quite a while.
Andy! Mike!
I tried to use my radio, but the throat mic had actually jumped off in the impact. I tried to do Morse code on the radio. Nobody was picking it up, or if they were picking it up, they probably thought it was some kind of static or interference. And then I went back to basics.
Help! Help!
That was a good flight, wasn't it?
Pat's teammates were miles away and already leaving the area, knowing that it's not unusual for a group to get separated in the air.
He's probably in the pub, isn't he? Yeah, probably. It's got any sense?
We thought that he'd just got waylaid. Maybe he'd landed further away from the gold field, it was taking longer to hitch back, or maybe he'd landed further away from the road and he had a bit of a walk to the road or was having difficulty finding a lift. We weren't too concerned about it at the time.
Pat continued to cry for help, but the chances of anyone hearing him in this remote area were slim. And then, a group of Italian hikers appeared.
I felt a sense of relief, but then within a few moments I also felt a sense of dread.
Parli italiano?
And I thought, well, it's going to be my luck now that I've actually been found, something's going to go wrong.
Togli il casco.
The first thing that one of the Italians tried to do was to take my helmet off.
No! No!
It seemed the wrong thing to do, so I'd raised my voice slightly and asked him in the best possible way not to take it off.
No!
Lo giriamo, piano, proviamo a girarlo. No, aspetta. Lo giriamo e gli allunghiamo le gambe.
Just to put the icing on the cake, one of them tried to actually turn me over. And he thought it was going to put me into a better position.
No!
I will be forever grateful that they actually found me. But if I hadn't have been conscious, they could quite easily have either killed me or caused me a lot more damage than I already had.
I need a helicopter. I need a helicopter. A helicopter.
Pat's first aid knowledge from his Army days allowed him to take control of the situation. And although language was a barrier, the simple acts of human kindness offered by one of the men who found him were not.
Come stai?
He seemed very calm about the situation.
Non vai tanto male, ma adesso arrivano, sai?
I understood what he was saying, and at one stage he was saying, be brave, have courage.
Coraggio, eh? Vedrai che adesso fanno presto ad arrivare, sai? Tra poco arrivano. Ti bagno un po' le labbra, aspetta un po' di meno.
You don't realize at the time how valuable that is until you're actually in that situation yourself.
Di coraggio, eh?
Thank you. And somebody actually takes the time out to talk to you and reassure you and try and pull you through.
L'elicottero fa presto ad arrivare, sai?
Especially if those words might actually be the last ones that you hear.
Airlifting Pat to a hospital would require another miracle. He couldn't be moved downhill, and there was no practical landing site.
We had the patient on the stretcher. It was very dangerous to bring it downhill. The helicopter couldn't land there, but it came very close to us. The position is critical because if the helicopter moves when we are loading the stretcher, the patient can fall from the helicopter. The blades were very close to the hill, so it was very difficult for the pilot to keep the helicopter in this position, and it was difficult for us to load the stretcher without falling down the hill.
Pat was airlifted to the nearest hospital where he spent 18 hours in surgery. His legs, ribs, and back were broken, and his doctors told him that he would never walk again.
I was really upset because the type of life that I led was so active. And to take my legs away, it seemed at that stage, and that on top of everything else I was feeling at that time was devastating.
But 2 years later, Pat is back on track, enjoying life and a new sport, with his wife Liz cheering him on.
Since his accident, we've been involved with a lot of disabled people, and I've learnt loads with regards to how people adapt, and you do adapt. You get knocked down, but you've just got to get back up again. And Pat has done that, definitely.
For Pat to have survived a free fall from over 5,000 feet to the ground was a miracle in itself. But to have been found by a group of hikers, alive and conscious, and to have been able to keep them from adding to his injuries was beyond miraculous. And for Pat and his wife, the miracle is not over yet.
She's 100% behind me, and she's quite determined that I'm going to walk again, and I don't think she'll take it from anyone else that I'm not. And so all I can give it is 100% now, and see whether I can in the future.
The English monarchs who lived here in Greenwich ruled over a vast domain that at one time stretched from Europe to Africa and beyond. We travel now to one of their more distant former colonies, Australia. It was there that a pioneering spirit took hold, not unlike the Wild West. And today, Australians continue to be rugged individualists, as you'll see in our next story, A Video Miracle. Stock car racing is a sport that Linton Connor usually looked forward to.
But that Sunday morning when we woke up, Linton really didn't want to go at all. Sort of nearly had to talk him into going. Once we got there, we got into the flow of things. The sun started coming out.
My job that day was a volunteer, and I was helping out with the crash crew. The heat race was on its final lap, and a yellow light was turned on because a car had spun at the other end of the racetrack. Linton appeared to slow. The other car hit him from the rear.
And in the next instant, he was engulfed in flames.
I thought it couldn't be flames, you know, it just seemed to be a small hit from another car. I sort of couldn't possibly think that it could catch on fire.
Not only was it on fire, but Linton was trapped inside, struggling to undo his seatbelt.
Until we could get the flames out, we couldn't get Linton out.
But the fire refused to cooperate, and Linton continued to suffer the unbearable heat.
I was screaming at the top of my lungs, somebody get him out. I just lost my cool and couldn't see anybody doing anything.
We had a vehicle behind that actually moved the vehicle probably a little bit before some of the volunteers realised that that was sort of happening, and it nearly ran over one of the people. But it was all done in a split second to try to get the car away from the fuel that was dumped on the ground.
I couldn't even see that it was a car. It was just covered in black smoke and flames, and I just thought, well, he must be dead.
Picture yourself, a man sitting in a burning car, you're looking straight into his eyes, he got his hands up through the roof saying, get me out, get me out. That's what gets me. I see his face so many times.
But Ted kept risking his own safety to unfasten Linton's belt.
I was crying while I was undoing his seatbelt. I was crying all the time I was doing it. I did, I got him out.
Linton was alive, but badly burned.
And so I basically applied water and first aid to him, oxygen. We got all that set up and covered his burns with clean cloth. I had just completed a course in burns management, so I was really fresh in my mind. The first thing I had to do was cool his burns down, because while they're in that situation, they're still burning. They can burn for quite a long time, even though the direct source of the burn is gone. It was a relief to see him get out of the fire, but I really thought, you know, once he was at the hospital, you know, he'd be all right.
I didn't realise I was burnt as bad. I'd never ever visualised burns to be this severe. I wasn't aware of how bad it was. And I started to take my gloves off, then all of a sudden it just blew up. I could hear people screaming and yelling, but it didn't seem like anybody was doing anything. I realised that they weren't going to get the fire out and I wasn't going to get out. And I thought, well, it's all over.
Linton was conscious for the whole thing, and it's just a miracle that he's alive.
For what he went through, I would say is absolutely amazing. He's had to battle really hard to get back to a normal existence. Back in the first year, I would have thought there's no way he could do any of the things he's doing now. He's driving a truck just as well as he ever did before. It's just simply amazing, just through determination.
Words can't describe how I feel about the ones that put what they have into me being here. I'm glad to be alive. Glad to be here.
Britain's National Maritime Museum seems an appropriate place to introduce this show's final international miracle, for it too involves the sea. It's the story of a man who dedicated his life to protecting one of the ocean's most precious inhabitants, the dolphin. Dolphins in their natural habitat are a wonder to behold. They are smart, personable, and happy creatures. And this is why when animal advocate Richard O'Barry learned that a dolphin was being tortured and abused in an amusement park in Santos, Brazil, he decided to do something about it.
I got a call from the World Society for the Protection of Animals telling me about a dolphin by the name of Flipper that they acquired from the court system in Brazil. And he'd been in isolation in this tank in substandard conditions for about 8 years. I was hired to release Flipper back into the wild.
Richard consulted rescue volunteer Marion Hanneman, and together they made the journey to Brazil.
Saw Flipper for the first time and I was absolutely shocked. This is unbelievable that this animal is still alive. The filter plant had been shut down for a long time. The water was absolutely filthy. His skin was falling off. He was smashing his head against the concrete wall.
And he would come up and his nose was all broken, cracked up, bleeding. I remember while I was filming, I was crying.
Miriam's daughter, Mahalia, and Miriam and I spent many, many hours swimming with Flipper, just making friends, looking him in the eye, letting him know that you don't have to do this job anymore. You're about to retire. Well, the first thing we had to do was follow some very strict scientific criteria. We had to do this very safely. It's not just about setting him free. It's a team effort. It takes lots of people. Sustained observation is the biggest part of it at that point, making sure his swimming abilities are okay, that he can catch fish, that he can use his sonar properly, that he's mentally healthy. All of these things are very, very important. There was conflict, of course, because this animal was making money for some people. And I was told by the man who was holding Flipper, he looked me right in the eyes and said, "This dolphin is never going to leave here alive."
The only way to protect Flipper was that there was somebody being there day and night. So we had guards all day, all night, just watching him. For 3 months, we were worried day and night. Because we were in love with this animal and very close to this animal, we were trying not to put our heart too much into it, which we did. We wanted to show people that dolphin rehabilitation works.
We had to pump all of this filth out of the tank. Then we put some shade up so Flipper could get out of the broiling sun. We had to do some recordings. We found out he stopped using his sonar. All of the hard work we were doing turned everything around, and people realized we were doing the right thing. And the Brazilian country got behind this. This became a national issue, and Flipper was now healed enough to be moved and to go home. It was time to leave this concrete, filthy box, and we couldn't wait to get out of there.
The only way to get Flipper out of Santos was by helicopter.
We were in tears when that helicopter finally appeared. We realized we're really leaving today. We were in the process now of taking Flipper back to the exact location where he was captured, a place called Laguna. Everything changed when we got out of the city and away from the amusement park. The first thing we had to do was build a temporary holding pen where the real healing process could begin, where he could once again experience the natural rhythms of the sea. Once he was in natural seawater, he wasn't depressed anymore.
And his eyes were opening up. Now being back to the natural seawater was great for him. Sometimes when other dolphins were passing by, you could tell that there was some kind of communication going on. I could tell that Flipper was using his sonar again by listening to what was happening underneath the water.
We had to wean him off of the dead fish and get him on live fish. He'd been eating dead, frozen fish for 8 or 9 years.
And it was wonderful to see him catching fish. He really enjoyed it.
It was joyous to watch the healing process day by day.
He's very tough. He's a very tough dolphin, and I think he's a survivor, you know. He has shown us.
And at the right time, we cut the gate and gave him a choice. Freedom is about choices and decisions. Had he stayed, we would have taken care of him for the rest of his life. He chose to go, and God bless him.
Well, that's our show for now. I'd like to thank the National Maritime Museum and the Royal Observatory for providing us with a base for our worldwide search for miracles. And a special thanks to everyone who shared their remarkable stories with us on It's a Miracle. It's our hope that whenever you need one, you'll find a miracle in your life too. Until next time, I'm Richard Thomas. Goodbye.